Hey, welcome back to another video, another garage chat video. At least it's a little bit nicer today. So I received a voicemail message from my website. Every once in a while someone does that. And this one individual left a message who's early in the process of all this, just starting out, and found the channel and is starting to see the light. And one of the questions that he had said he had asked his ex just recently was, why did this happen? Why? And the answer back was something along the lines of, I don't have to answer you, and she stormed off. And it brings up one of the reoccurring issues that are really tough in this whole situation, and that's finding closure and getting answers. One would expect that whenever you've been with somebody and you had a relationship, that you would at least give them the common courtesy or the dignity of some type of closure, some type of answer, so that you can go, okay, I can wrap my head around this and move on. In a normal relationship, that's exactly what happens. You even if you break up, you're able to communicate and have an understanding and maintain some type of civility in the situation. The problem is that in toxic narcissistic relationships, it doesn't work this way. And it's the same, or how am I going to say this? It's if you're dealing with a toxic person, whether it's a woman or a man, they typically will react and respond the same way. And that not giving you closure, giving you answers is a big thing. I remember when I was when I was listening to this message, I was thinking back to my time where I felt the exact same way. I just couldn't understand. It's like, why did this happen? What was the answer? I did at one point have a conversation with the ex where I asked that question. It's like, how did this happen? How did we get to this point? And when you're dealing with somebody who's toxic, narcissistic, emotionally immature, all those different categories wrap up into this little package of terror to really drive you crazy. The reality is, unfortunately, that we have to find our own closure. You're never really going to get an answer from your ex. It would be phenomenal if they could just say something. I'm batshit crazy and I'm doing this because I can't stop myself. Which probably wouldn't be a good answer anyways, but I mean, in the simplest terms, that's pretty much what you're dealing with. Bottom line is, if you really want to kind of to delve into it to help you understand it, it's a very controlling position for them to be in. You're longing for information. You want answers. You want closure. You're begging for it in a certain extent. And by them not giving that to you, it's like they're dangling you from a line and keeping you on the hook. What you have to realize is that's exactly who they are. That's their mode. When you want something, they're not going to give it to you because I'm not going to give you anything unless there's some reason in it for them that benefits them. But they're not going to have an empathetic view on it that gives them the ability to show some compassion for you. Also, keep in mind that typically these type of people want to be the victim. They want you to be the enemy, and they frame everything in that way and in that mindset. What that means is, think about it. If you're looking at somebody not as a human, not as somebody you could have compassion for, and you're looking at them as the enemy, somebody that has wronged you in such a way, and you're maintaining this, then you wouldn't give them anything, right? And that's kind of the situation you find yourself. Now, that means that you have to find your own closure. You have to learn about this enough, not to where it consumes you, which it will. All of this information, when you first start out, you are going to dive into it and go down the deep, dark rabbit hole trying to figure it out. But you need to figure out just enough to go, okay, I got it. This is who they are. The pattern of behaviors repeat. Those patterns of behaviors also mimic what I'm seeing on these different YouTube channels, what other people are talking about, like my channel and others. And you're like, okay, so there's a pattern here. These people follow these patterns, so this is the reality. And then from there, you start to get your answer, why? Why? I mean, initially, it's like what I just said. You roll it back even farther, it's from whatever their trauma is or their unfinished issues are that they are stuck in that's keeping them trapped. Now, I'm cautious to say that because, or I caution when I say that, because in your early part of this, when you think, oh my God, they're damaged too, I can help them, heal through those wounds and become a better person. Well, I hate to tell you, people like this like that drama and that chaos that they're stuck in. They're not going to give it up easily, and I can guarantee you that you're not the one that's going to be able to help them see the light, see the errors of their ways, and have them come to the light, so to speak. It's just not going to happen. Is it possible that someone else might be able to help them? Maybe. Unfortunately, you're not the one. You are enemy number one. You are going to, basically, unless you bow to their whim, you are going to be fought every step of the way. And it's one of those things that it just doesn't end. They get stuck in their narrative. That's where they like to be, and they don't want to leave there. Coffee. So it's a tough one, though, because I remember when I was in that mode and I was just wrapped up in this, trying to figure out why. How did this happen? How did 20 some odd years of marriage just obliterate and meant nothing, and now we're in this adversarial state that makes no sense? How can you go from being, to where you love somebody and in theory they loved you, to complete hate and disgust? And you got to keep in mind that these people typically have problems with themselves too. They can't live in their own reality, or they can live in their own reality. They cannot live in reality to where they understand that they need to where their problems came from, because they don't want to address it. So it's easier just to keep that for them in a box and make everyone else the antagonist. Everyone else is the tormentor, the abuser. They're the unwitting victim. They're the ones who've been tricked and lied to and left again. You'll notice a pattern. And what I would say, if this person is watching this video, more than likely, unless you were the very first person they met, they had a string of previous relationships that ended in disaster. They weren't treated right. They were emotionally abused. It was never, I had a relationship, this person was okay, I went left, they went right, I wonder how they're doing. I mean, it's always that adversarial type of situation. And remember that, right? Because it's like these patterns repeat. So if you have that situation where you're confused on it, you have to take a step back. You almost have to basically pull yourself out of the situation and look at it objectively, as if you were talking to me, right? Like if I was telling you this story and you're sitting over there going, oh, okay, and listening to it objectively and stringing the pieces together. Oftentimes for us that are in the middle of it, you have such an emotional connection to it that it's really tough for you to do that, because you're like, well, wait a minute. I can remember some happy times. I can remember when they were happy. I can remember when things were okay. You're going to have that. Because if it was constant crap from day one, you would have never stayed. You wouldn't have married the person. You wouldn't have committed to the person, more than likely. It starts out with an illusion that starts in the beginning, and then it slowly filters away or dissipates away. And really what's happening is they can't maintain that facade. They can play this part of the perfect person for you. But what happens is after a while, they can't maintain it because it's not real. It's a facade that they created to lull you in. It's like they come at it with, how do I make this person love me? How do I get them to commit to me? How do I get them to not leave me? And they become who you need or want them to be. They mirror what you're expecting. Doesn't matter if it's a chick doing it or a guy doing it, they do the exact same thing. Problem is, it's fake, and after a while they can't maintain it, so it starts to drop. And they'll bounce back and in and do a little bit of it. It's like this little ebb and flow thing until it just gets to the point where they can't do it anymore. And typically what happens is as that's starting to diminish, you're having, that whole cognitive dissonance on it, to where you're not sure what end is up. So you're not willing to believe that that was an illusion. You want that illusion back. You want that first hit of that drug back. You're still chasing that high, so to speak, of that initial relationship, but it's not real. You can't achieve it again because it wasn't real. The point of this is that you are never going to get an answer from your ex on why this happened. You are more than likely, correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone has had an experience that differs to this, to where you absolutely did get closure, I'd love to hear about it. Put it in the comments below. If not, just give me a thumbs up, or let me say, just say you agree with, this is your experience too, that you had the exact same thing. Typically what happens is that they won't do that. They can't do it. And if you ever do have a conversation with them, it's just going to be lip service, and it's going to be mumbo jumbo, and you're going to walk out of it going, what? And that's kind of what happened with me. I think when I asked that question, and I've made videos on this before, but I think that the short answer was, well, we both got bad advice. And I'm like, what? Here's the other thing I just want to mention on this, is they do exactly what they want to do. Do not get caught in the trap to where you're thinking that, oh, if it wasn't for this attorney, or if it wasn't for this family member, or if it wasn't for these friends, they're doing whatever the hell they want. And what they're doing is they're surrounding themselves with people who agree with their decision. But they will absolutely use these other people as an excuse. Well, if it wasn't me, it was them, right? Because they are always the victim. They are never responsible for their actions, and it's not them. It's just a tough one. What I hope that you can see from this is a feeling. If you're in that mode where you're feeling that right now, it doesn't last forever. It lasts a long time. I'll give you that. It does last a while. It did for me. I think maybe 3 or 4 years where I was kind of stuck thinking about that, ruminating about it. After a while, you start to realize what's reality, and you don't fall for that trap anymore. I have a video that I made a long time ago, a series of videos. I'll put a link for it, or for the playlist, up in the card above. And the first video in that, the first one is hybrid no contact. If you have kids, you should watch that. If you don't have kids, the next one in that series is absolute thinking. And the whole premise of that video is to program into your head, drill into your head what reality is. Not the fantasy, but what the reality is. So it's like you make the decision that they are a narcissist. They are NPD, cluster B, comorbid, dark triad, whatever it is. You pick it, 100%, that's it. No diagnosis. It's just what you're doing is that way whenever something happens, you can say it's a manipulation. Why did they make me tea way back when? Well, it was because it wasn't to be nice. It was a manipulation. It was all part of this facade. Why did they do this? It's because that's what they do. It's like, this framework of what a person is. This is the things that they do. These are what the ex did. This is absolutely what it is. I say that because if you can do that, it can help you deal with that circular do loop that you get stuck in, to where you don't stay there forever, because you easily can. That's why it's called an infinite do loop, because it just keeps going in a circle and it's really hard to get out of. And then you can start working on other aspects of this. But that's, I think, a real critical part of this is in the beginning, is just accepting reality, believing what is real, not the fantasy, not the excuses, what's right in front of your face, what those actions are, not the words, what is actually happening, so that you can actually see the reality. And then from there, it gets easier. Realistically, if you do that every day for a month, I mean, I'm like every day for a month, listen to that damn video every day. And after a while, it becomes easier. When I first started that technique in my own head, because I had to do something to save my sanity, it started out really tough. I would do that, and as time went on, it's like the amount of time that I would struggle with it kept getting shorter. And that's kind of the process of work. So it takes time. It's not quick. And that's really how probably 95%, maybe 99% of the people who are in these experiences get their closure and get their answers. They figure it out themselves. They identify what they're dealing with. They understand the personality. They can answer the question themselves by the actions of the other person, and then they're able to start moving on. So I'd love to hear what you think about this, if this is helpful. If you know somebody who is struggling with this, share this video with them, because it just might help them out. And hopefully you can see somebody who is doing better, living life better. It took a long time. I mean, I'm almost I might be 9 years into this now. Have to check the dates. And, it does get better. I mean, is it the way I expected it? No. Is it the way I had wanted it to be? No. It's actually better, to be honest. Minus the money. Minus that. Minus the money, minus the retirement, minus all those other things. But just in a basic quality of life, emotionally, a lot better. You'll get there too. All right. Chat with you later. Take care. Bye.